and we can't begin too soon. Would you rather sleep first, or have a bite of lunch, take the drive with me, and then rest? I don't know but sleep will come sooner and deeper to take the ride and have your mind set at ease before you lie down. Suppose you go." "Suppose I do," said Freckles, with a glimmer of the old light in his eyes, and newly found strength to shoulder the otter. Together they turned into the trail. McLean noticed and spoke of the big black chickens. "They've been hanging round out there for several days past," said Freckles. "I'll tell you what I think it means. I think the old rattler has killed something too big for him to swallow, and he's keeping guard and won't let me chickens have it. I'm just sure from the way the birds have acted out there all summer that it's the rattler's den. You watch them now. See the way they dip, then rise frightened like." Suddenly McLean turned toward him with blanching face. "Freckles!" he cried. "My God, sir!" shuddered Freckles. He dropped the otter, caught up his club, and plunged into the swale. Reaching for his revolver, McLean followed. The chickens circled higher at their coming, and the big snake lifted his head and rattled angrily. It sank in sinuous coils at the report of McLean's revolver, and together he and Freckles stood beside Black Jack. His fate was evident and most horrible. "Come," said the Boss at last. "We daren't touch him. We'll get a sheet from Mrs. Duncan and tuck over him to keep these swarms of insects away, and set Hall on guard while we find the officers." Freckles' lips closed resolutely. He deliberately thrust his club under Black Jack's body, and raising him, rested it on his knee. He pulled a long silver pin from the front of the dead man's shirt and sent it spinning into the swale. Then he gathered up a few crumpled bright flowers and dropped them into the pool far away. "My soul is sick with the horror of this thing," said McLean as he and Freckles drove toward town. "I can't understand how Jack dared risk creeping through the swale, even in desperation. No one knew its dangers better than he. And why did he choose the rankest, muckiest place to cross the swamp? Don't you think, sir, it was because it was on a line with the Limberlost south of the corduroy? The grass was tallest there, and he counted on those willows to screen him. Once he got among them, he would have been safe to walk by stooping. If he'd made it past that place, he'd have been sure to get out." "Well, I'm as sorry for Jack as I know how to be," said McLean, "but I can't help feeling relieved that our troubles are over, for now they are. With so dreadful a punishment for Jack, Wessner under arrest, and warrants for the others, we can count on their going away and remaining. As for anyone else, I don't think they will care to attempt stealing my timber after the experience of these men. There's no other man here with Jack's fine ability in woodcraft. He was an expert. Did you ever hear of anyone who tried to locate any trees excepting him?" asked Freckles. "No, I never did," said McLean. "I'm sure there was no one besides him. You see, it was only with the arrival of our company that the other fellows scented good stuff in the Limberlost and tried to work in. Jack knew the swamp better than anyone here. When he found there were two companies trying to lease, he wanted to stand in with the one from which he could realize the most. Even then he had trees marked that he was trying to dispose of. I think his sole intention in forcing me to discharge him from my gang was to come here and try to steal timber. We had no idea when we took the lease what a gold mine it was." "That's exactly what Wessner said that first day," said Freckles eagerly, "that 'twas a gold mine. He said he didn't know where the marked trees were, but he knew a man who did, and if I would hold off and let them get the marked ones, there were a dozen they could get out in a few days." "Freckles!" cried McLean. You don't mean a dozen?" "That's what he said, sir. A dozen. He said they couldn't tell how the grain of all of them would work up, of course, but they were all worth taking out, and 5 or 6 were real gold mines. That makes 3 they've tried, so there must be 9 more marked, and several of them for being just fine." "Well, I wish I knew which they are," said McLean, "so I could get them out first." "I've been thinking," said Freckles. "I believe if you will leave one of the guards on the line, say Hall, then I will begin on the swamp at the north end and lay it off in sections, and try to hunt out the marked trees. I suppose they were all marked something like that first maple on the line was. Wesner mentioned another good one not so far from that. He said it was best of all. I'd be having the swelled head if I could find that. Of course I don't know a thing about the trees, but I could hunt for the marks. Jack was so good at it he could tell some of them by the bark, but all he wanted to take that we found so far have just had a deep chip cut out, rather low down, and where the bushes were thick over it. I believe I could be finding some of them." "Good head," said McLean. "We'll do that. You may begin as soon as you are rested. And about things you come across in the swamp, Freckles, the most trifling little thing that you think the Bird Woman would want, take your wheel and go after her at any time. I'll leave 2 men on the line so that you'll have one on either side, and you can come and go as you please. Have you stopped to think of all we owe her, my boy?" "Yes, and the Angel. We owe her a lot too," said Freckles. "I owe her me life and honor. It's lying awake nights I'll have to be, trying to think how I'm ever to pay her up." "Well, begin with the muff," suggested McLean. "That should be fine." He bent down and ruffled the rich fur of the otter lying at his feet. "I don't exactly see how it comes to be in such splendid fur in summer. Their coats are always thick in cold weather, but this scarcely could be improved. I'll wire Cooper to be watching for it. They must have it fresh. When it's tanned, we won't spare any expense in making it up. It should be a royal thing, and some way I think it will exactly suit the Angel. I can't think of anything that would be more appropriate for her." "Neither can I," agreed Freckles heartily. "When I reach the city there's one other thing if I've the money after the muff is finished." He told McLean of Mrs. Duncan's desire for a hat similar to the Angel's. He hesitated a little in the telling, keeping sharp watch on McLean's face. When he saw the boss's eyes were full of comprehension and sympathy, he loved him anew, for, as ever, McLean was quick to understand. Instead of laughing, he said, "I think you'll have to let me in on that too. You mustn't be selfish, you know. I'll tell you what we'll do. Send it for Christmas. I'll be home then, and we can fill a box. You get the hat, I'll add a dress and wrap. You buy Duncan a hat and gloves. I'll send him a big overcoat, and we'll put in a lot of little stuff for the babies. Won't that be fun?" Freckles fairly shivered with delight. "That would be a way too serious for fun," he said. "That would be heavenly. How long will it be?" He began counting the time, and McLean deliberately set himself to encourage Freckles and keep his thoughts from the troubles of the past few days, for he had been overwrought and needed quiet and rest. End of chapter 14, wherein Freckles nurses a heartache and Black Jack drops out.